Ever wonder what it'd be like to play as a werewolf? The gaming studio Cyanide delivers on that question. Which is interesting because the guy who started Cyanide used to work for the shit company Ubisoft. The Cyanide studio has an interesting number of games under its belt, which led to the creation of Werewolf The Apocalypse. And that game plays something like this. Play as a freaking werewolf who just slams shits around and doesn't give a damn about basketball. You can just rip into enemies, grab them, execute them. The game really makes you feel like you're a werewolf. You even have the Witcher sense, skill trees, all those other things in other RPGs that make you feel like you're some kind of mythical beast or detective. And the best part, after all that, is that there's other werewolves to fight, and even better than that, there's a fucking story. But before we get into the story, let's take a time out. Let's take a pause. Let's take a minute to do some reflecting on how this game even came to be. We're going all the way back, like 1991 back. Werewolf the Apocalypse is the second installment video game out of the whole Werewolf franchise, coming right after Werewolf Heart of the Forest. The White Wolf publishing house created Werewolf the Apocalypse series in 1991, and it also created the other famous series, Vampire the Masquerade. However, between the two franchises, it seems like Vampire the Masquerade definitely got more attention and more love. It has a bigger cult following than Werewolf, considering the games that have been highly revered. You have the game that everybody loved, that has stood the test of time, that one game everybody liked, and then that one game that they made recently that nobody liked that. On top of all those video games they made, they have plenty of Vampire the Masquerade board games, books, series. It's pretty vast and vapid. Werewolf is almost on par with that, but not really. The original idea for the Werewolf series was for it to be integrated into the Vampire Masquerade series, but due to a lot of the things conflicting, a lot of the morals not lining up, they ended up making it its own standalone title, which spawned the creation of the World of Darkness, which is multiple entries basically about the same things, but with different factions and different methods and different things controlling different things. Now, with all that being said and done, a little history lesson under our belts, let's look at the actual game. I am a firm believer of the two, as I call it. If your game does not look good, it should at least have a great story. Or if your game does not have a great story, it should at least be fun to play. A game I feel that has a great story but very mediocre graphics would be a game like Greedfall, a game where you have to go around and figure out a cure for your dying country. When it came out, definitely was not visually pleasing in terms of other games at the time, but it definitely had a story that was different, and it encouraged you to be more diplomatic to solve problems with different enemy factions or different allied factions, because relationships could change very easily in the game, thus affecting the outcome and the gameplay. And it took a real huge emphasis on trying to promote diplomacy over combat, which is like very interesting. Like, it kept you guessing, like, okay, how should I get around this problem without making it worse further down the line, because all your actions kind of tally up when shit hits the fan, right? Then you have a game series like Pokemon, right? The whole franchise is arguably really good, depending on who you ask and when you consider Pokemon to be good. But still one of the most high selling games today, right? But it has one of the worst stories. The graphics are mediocre, and all of them played the same. You play as a 10-year-old to a 13-year-old who goes on an adventure to find Pokemon. Then you find one of two bad guy groups who want to use that game's legendary Pokemon to fulfill some sinister base plot, and you put it into it. That's it. It's the whole game. But it's the combat that makes Pokemon really stand out in a way, right? You have all these enemy types. Certain Pokemon get different variants depending on what region you're in. They can learn different moves. They have different types. It really kind of plays into, like, you know, changing the game, but not changing it too much. It definitely keeps the same formula, but it's still like a fun formula until they started adding keys to the game. Say the Werewolf Apocalypse game gets -2 from the Goro house.
Drugs.
It's Bandit from Rainbow Six Siege.
As far as the story goes, it's very cut and dry and super easy to figure out what exactly is going to happen. They raise every death flag for every scene the character's about to die. Some of the tension is cut very, very thin, especially like the part where you have to raid the training facility that's literally 4 steps away from your main base place. Like, what the fuck?
List.
There. I saw the sign, but like I thought it was like a billboard. There's no way that this fucking place is right here. What happened to the 2 dudes that was right here? Oh, they're right. Like, what the fuck? This is like literally next door to y'all. Y'all been living next door to these people. This is not even a mile. This is like a block. This ain't even a block. This is literally your next door neighbor. What the fuck? Oh my gosh.
To add insult to injury, after that mission, you're finally able to just explore the surrounding areas, and that's when you see it firsthand. Every enemy base literally surrounds this small patch of forest that everybody's trying to cling to. It's literally like the size of that patch of forest in between 2 highways. Like, you can see through it and see the other highway. That's what they're protecting.
No way. Is this the same facility? Okay. That whole operation was just right next to your house. That's wild. This is another facility. This is just another. I'm so confused. Like,
All in all, if I had to rate the story out of 10, I'd give it a solid 3 for the amount of times that I opened the game. Now, what story is complete without characters? The characters in the game are lifeless, boring, and forgettable. Every single one of them. Even the main dude, Kahal, is just generic Bandit. They could have just made him literally Bandit from Rainbow Six Siege, and I feel like that would have been so much better. To just take note of a few characters that you encounter early on in the game, you have Rodko, who's supposed to be like the pack leader, the alpha, the dude who's on top making the best decisions for the Karen. Newsflash, he doesn't.
Touched down on the site's landing pad. Apparently it's some Endron exec. Their presence is shaking things up.
Tell me Ludmilla's okay.
She's okay. They've still got no idea she's on site. But their guard patrols have changed, and certain areas are locked down. And that includes the one Ludmilla's in.
So what's the plan now?
The mission's sunk. We go in there, get her out, and wait for things to quiet down. But to get her off site, the locked-off areas need to be manually unlocked. And Ludmilla's stuck on the wrong side.
Shit.
Newsflash, he sucks. And newsflash, you have to pick up all the slack because he cannot do it. but he reminds you all the time that he is the leader, and he does not fuck with your decision to leave and come back, even though he's not doing any fucking thing. So another character that you have is Ludmilla, who you only meet one time in the game, and then she immediately dies. But since there was no real build up when she dies, it doesn't really impact me. I didn't really care. It was just like she died, and it doesn't explain to you how she died, why the werewolf attacked her, what the fuck is a black spiral dancer. It doesn't even try to answer any of those questions, and then the game is just like, alright, cut to 5 years later. Then lastly, you have Adana, who is the child between Cabal and Ludmilla. She just sucks. All she does is complain and is upset that her dad chose to leave instead of stay, and that's her whole thing. She's just upset, daddy's girl. That's it. That's her whole character. All the background characters are easily forgettable. Their designs are very limited. Most of the men in the Karen were red, while most of the women were like green, yellow. They all kind of wear checkered pattern shirts with jeans and New Balance Samoas. That's what they look like to me. The other people in the Karen wear hazmat suits. The game does not specify why they wear them or why only they need them. They just wear hazmat suits, and that's what they do. I think they're a part of some activist group started by Ava. But then again, like I said, the game does not explain this right away, so yeah, not really sure what's going on with that. So the story's boring, the characters are boring, and all anything left at this point is combat.
Op 4, last operator standing.
Side note on that, the environments were nice. I wish they were like expanded upon to make me feel like I was really a werewolf in a forest, but you know how that goes. So the combat gives you two choices. One of the choices being a tactical one, where you can turn into the little wolf called the Lupus and crawl around and stealthily try to take out enemies. The only downside is you have to constantly transform into a human, which is weird. Like you think a dog would be able to just bite a dude's neck off or something. The stealth portions of the game are loosely boring and loosely entertaining. The crossbow, which is the other tactical option as far as stealth, clearly is the best way to go. Clearly. Like, look at this. Look at this. Look how amazing this crossbow is. Look at it. Look at it go. Look at it just work its crossbow magic.
Stay on your guard. I don't think anybody's gonna stay on their guard. This is really good gameplay. I'm winning. This is how you win the game, right? This is my playstyle. Good shot. I'm out of crossbow. The crossbow. Oh shit. Here we go again.
The other side of combat is just straight up wolfen style, going guns ablazing, all gung-ho style, which is gonna happen more often than I would have cared for it to, because it's fun at first, but it gets like super repetitive. Then they introduce enemies that kind of like really demean the value of playing as the giant werewolf. Like, I felt like if there was going to be a tactical option and like a wrath option, you should benefit from which playstyle you want to lean more into. A lot of the tactical abilities don't really help you increase your tactical arsenal that much. The game's main abilities kind of rely on you turning into the giant wolf, but it's like, why incentivize the stealth in the first place if you clearly just want me to use the giant wolf for like every section of the game, which is why I feel like it definitely demeans the value of it. But then it kind of introduces like really annoying enemies, like enemies in the exos who can stun you like over and over again. You can't stun them, so it's just like a weird balance, right? All in all, I would say the combat is decent. The tactical side is a bit boring, but yeah, it's kind of redeemed by the turn into the big wolf. but that kind of gets boring. So if you find like a nice little balance to it, it definitely has its moments where it's like, this is pretty fun. Plus it's fun to just throw enemies and rip their heads off and stuff like that. But other than that, combat very mediocre. So with that being said, the story, the characters, the design, the combat, I would have to give this game a solid 3. 3 is just the number for this one. I just feel like it was lacking so much, and the reason for that is for numerous reasons. One, I went and read a good bit of lore about the Werewolf Apocalypse before I made the video, and they talk about a lot as far as how werewolf culture worked, how children were born, and the roles that each werewolf plays. That shit just went out the window when this game came out. Werewolves were not allowed to have children together, but the main dude and his wife were both werewolves, and they had a child, so that was weird. Nobody has specific roles based off the moon they were born, like in the story. It just kind of seemed like they just wanted to make an action game where you turn into a werewolf and beat shit up, and they did, and this is the result. But who am I?